Welcome back to another episode of Between Two Vulns, where we share the latest AI security news I'm Dan McInerney, and this is Marcello Salvati. I was going to mess up your name for a second.
I barely know who I am anyway.
I know. Yeah. We've had a very interesting last month of news in AI because of the 12 days of shitness that OpenAI had, and all these new products and libraries are coming out. And so we're going to give you a little glimpse into what we think the future holds here and where this is all going.
Yeah.
So I think one of the most interesting things that came out over Christmas was NVIDIA's Project Digits. This is a $3,000 computer. It's a supercomputer. It's 128 gigs of memory. It can hold I think you can locally run like a multi-billion parameter LLMs
models,
on this thing.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is the fact that this removes the problem a lot of companies had from running LLMs internally because it was very, very expensive to store an LLM, a large language model, high parameter count LLM locally. And the beauty of this is that a lot of these companies couldn't use LLM applications because they have sensitive customer data.
Yep.
So this just basically unlocked cheaply the ability to run LLMs locally, internally, on a VPN or whatever.
How much is this? It's $3,000.
$3,000,
right?
bucks.
Oh, yeah, which is, for an organization, I get that's pretty cheap.
Yeah, you can get a few of these.
Sorry, yeah.
And now you can store your customer data internally alone. You don't have to, share it to the cloud, which I think was a major concern of a lot of the companies that we talked to.
Yep, still is. I mean, I guess you can run like frontier, like open source frontier models on it.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously the closed source models are still somewhat better than the open source models.
It's getting really close because DeepSeek version 3 was just released, and DeepSeek version 3 is testing better than ChatGPT 4.0.
Yeah.
And so, the moat around the frontier models is this thin.
Yeah,
it's never-ending arms race that I don't think they're ever going to have a moat.
Yeah.
I think the moat has dried up, and it's never coming back.
And also, I think Quen was also another. Quen, like a 30, I forget how many parameters it had, like 70, probably like 70 billion or something like that.
Yep.
90 billion, but like that was also really good too. So yeah, the moat's definitely getting thinner for sure. But this allows you to definitely like run a gigantic parameter model locally.
Yeah, and not share customer data.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this is going to really supercharge organizations' ability to run LLM applications locally and not be concerned about the data security risks.
Yeah, exactly. Privacy concerns, yeah, for sure.
So on this note, the other huge breakthrough that came on the final day of 2024 was OpenAI's newest model was O3. They skipped O2 because of copyright issues or something, the trademark issues. They're calling it O3, and it officially beat human performance on the Arc AGI benchmark.
Yep.
This is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Now, to tamper down the expectations or to not make this quite as hyperbolic, the Arc AGI benchmark people that created it and whatnot, they said they don't actually think O3 is AGI. And just for reference, AGI means an artificial intelligence that's essentially at human level performance. O3 got 87% on the Arc AGI test. Humans get 85%.
Yeah.
So on this particular benchmark, it's beating human performance.
Yeah, that in itself is kind of nuts for sure.
It's only been 2 years since ChatGPT came out, and it had 1,000 context window. Now we're at millions of context window, and GPT-2 was a 0% on the Arc AGI. GPT-3 was a 0% on the Arc AGI. 3.5 was a 2% on the Arc AGI. Suddenly, boom, 87%. AGI is kind of a moving target. Personally, I'm just going to go ahead and say that was the day that's going to go down in history as being the day that AI essentially matched human performance.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. One is definitely the plateauing of LLMs. I don't know if maybe it's going to be interesting to see what happens next, I guess, right? Because will performance curve out? Will it flatten out at this point? Now that we reached what was it, 87% or something? Yeah, 87%. I mean, are we gonna get ASI, where artificial superintelligence, where it just keeps going up and up and up and up? I'm not exactly sure. It's hard to predict these things. I think
super easy to predict these things.
It's going
up. It's going up the whole time.
it just keeps going up. But I mean, the trend has definitely been that performance just does keep increasing.
Yes.
However, like there's definitely something to be said about compute power, about the ability to improve performance, because O3 is basically, well, wait, is O3 is basically the one that does chain of thought before it during inference time,
Test
before
time
it gives you
compute.
the result, right? Yeah, exactly. So like there's something to be said about like it I guess like you can almost call it like a hack maybe, because it's not necessarily just pure like it's not achieving that benchmark based on its pure performance. It's basically doing that because of the chain of thought before.
Yeah, because they pumped money into O3.
Inference time compute or something.
It was like
that's
$1
the
million
technical term.
per task to make O3
Yeah.
pass these tests and
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, understandable, but like,
That's also true. Yeah, that's another thing. That's a good point. Where it's like, in order to achieve that benchmark, they spent how much money in inference time?
millions
of dollars.
I don't remember. I'm making these numbers
So
up.
yeah,
but
yeah,
I know it's
a substantial
extraordinary
amount.
of
Yeah,
money.
yeah, to achieve that level of performance. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff to take into consideration here, like inference costs, like all this stuff, like.
But everything's just going down. Like
Yeah,
like
for sure.
The
No,
inference
100%,
costs
you're
over
right.
time from ChatGPT 3.5 to today have exponentially decreased.
Yes.
While the intelligence has exponentially increased.
Yeah, it has. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes for sure. Like,
Yep.
I'm curious to see like that when O3 gets released, what happens. I'm curious to see like the next version of Claude.
Yep.
Because I feel like we're at a make or break point right now, where it's like I feel like in my opinion, like we're sort of plateauing a bit in terms of performance of LLMs generally, at least with the Transformers architecture. It's going to be interesting to see if the next release of these companies like keeps increasing the performance by a drastic amount versus just like, you know, a little tiny bit, or if it's just gonna like sort of like level out a bit. But we'll see. I think this is like the make or break moment for sure, though, in terms of like, can we continue on this like trajectory of like performance increasing, or
Yeah.
will it just like stable out a bit?
I highly suspect that 2025 is the year that
Yeah.
we start seeing major organizations actively replace employees with agents.
Yeah.
And one of these reasons is because OpenAI is going to release their, I've seen it called the operator framework,
Yeah.
which is a standardized method of creating agents. I think once they release that and the next generation of models comes out in the next 6 months, that's the tipping point.
For sure.
So getting to know agents and building small agents right now is actually a really, really good idea for your future career, because it's going to become really important. But what about the security aspects here?
Yeah, I mean, the only real concern like is basically prompt injection.
Yeah.
Honestly, like to be perfectly honest, like prompt injection is king in terms of security concerns, and you know,
Is it even solvable?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't. I mean, it can be mitigated, but it's, you know, a lot of this is just the same old stuff. You know, it's like a lot of the prompt. You know, it just comes down to user input sanitization. You know, it's like the classic web app, stuff. Like, can you sanitize user input going into your LLM? Yeah, I mean that's
the API call. Can you sanitize API calls? It's always been the problem.
It's always been the problem. So like it's a lot of this. There's definitely, I don't know if it's like solvable, like the root cause of it is solvable, but you can definitely mitigate it quite substantially. I feel like just by putting, you know, like basically web application firewalls in front of your application, or just prevent user input going directly into an LLM at all. Like I feel like
that's an
architectural design. Yeah, exactly.
That's gonna be almost impossible, because like an agent that does something useful is gonna go out and have access to the whole internet. So like anyone can just stand up a website that has a prompt injection attack. And then what do? Like, there's almost no. I don't think there's really any way of preventing that as of today that we have thought of.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of research that needs to be done there, especially when it comes to like the computer use API with Claude and like the operator framework once that gets released. Like a lot of this stuff is gonna be a heavy area of research. I don't necessarily think it's going to stop people from building applications at all.
No, because as long as it makes money, people are going to.
It's going to be
less concerned about security.
It's going to be interesting to see the first public like a prompt injection attack happening on like a large scale agent, I guess. That's going to be an interesting thing that I'm actually curious to see, like how long it takes for that to happen. because you know for a fact that there's going to be like websites that are going to put prompt injection stuff in their HTML, and then like the OpenAI agent is going to browse to it, and it's going to be a whole mess. I have a feeling that's definitely going to happen this year as well.
I mean, we might as well just call this the OWASP top 1 because honestly, I don't see the other threats as much of a threat.
Exactly.
Prompt injection is like 99% of the threat surface of these agents.
Yeah, prompt injection is king for sure in terms of like attack surface on LLMs. Everything else is kind of, it's worrisome mostly from a compliance perspective more than a security perspective. But
personal identifier,
like
information leakage,
PI leakage, training data leakage, that kind of stuff, like the poem stuff. But prompt injection is by far the main concern, I think, at this point.
Yep.
And with that, it's the end of the show. Smash that like button, smash the subscribe button. What other button is there? I think that's all the buttons that I can think about. Or you can use browser use to make the LLM smash the subscribe button and like button for you.
Smart.
Galaxy brain. And with that, I think that's it. Close it out. See you next month.